Welcome to De-Stress Your Business, the podcast where we show you how to get incredible results in your business without constant stress. I'm Alexis Kingsbury, a serial entrepreneur and founder at AirManual, and I'm joined by my co-founder and co-host, Paddy Mann. Morning, Paddy.
Good morning.
So, artificial intelligence, or AI, has come of age. With tools like ChatGPT, there are now hundreds of ways in which AI can help you solve the kinds of problems that most businesses face every day. The opportunities are huge, but then so are the risks. So in this episode, we're going to dive into those risks to help you understand what the risks are, how they could affect your business, and what you should do about it to de-stress your business now and for the future. So, Paddy, let's start by talking about the types of risk that AI can present to businesses. What are some of the kind of major risks that you see?
Cool. So I'd say there's probably three major types that we should be thinking about at this point. The first one is, does your product or service, and in some cases you may have multiple products and services, are any of those going to be directly impacted by the new tools that are now becoming available? So there are tools like ChatGPT, which can help people to do brainstorming and come up with content. There are tools that help to help businesses with their audio and their video and with solving coding problems and so on. And if you have a service where you're providing value in these areas, if you have a product where part of what it does is something that can now be done partly with those tools, then there's this risk that what you do could become less valuable. The second one is that with the new tools that are available, there is an opportunity, and you have an opportunity as your business to be using it in different areas to be moving faster, but so do your competitors. So the risk is, what could the other businesses be doing? What could be happening there? And then the third type of risk that I'd highlight is around your sales and marketing channels. Because if you are, particularly if you're using online marketing in any way, your marketing channels could be disrupted. And for some businesses, this could be a small portion of their overall marketing effort. But for a lot of smaller businesses, this could be their entire marketing effort. So if you are reliant, for example, on paid ads on Google or SEO or so on, there is a risk that things could be disrupted.
Yeah, no, I think, as you say, three large categories in which that we can see some risks and impact for businesses. Let's dive into them a bit more. So the first one that you mentioned was that products or services might become less valuable. So talk us through, how might that happen?
Well, of course, this is the kind of thing where it really depends on the products or services that you have and you're providing in your business. And so you'll want to look at each of them in turn and go, okay, is there any part of what we are offering which could in some way be replicated or produced? And not necessarily everything you do, but part of that service. Because it could be the thing that currently differentiates what you do, or just a part of the service which is enough that people see value in what you offer today and they're willing to pay the prices that you charge today, which could change that mental arithmetic for them. I'll give a couple of examples of kind of more obvious ones, but it's the kind of thing where you will want to review your specific business's products and really think about it. And you really need to take a look at all the things that AI can do. And to do that, we'll have other podcast episodes. We've mentioned later, we've got an ebook and a webinar. But look at all the different things that it can do and all the different ways, because it's not just ChatGPT and being able to answer questions there. There's loads of different services that can, as I mentioned earlier, help with video and AI and video and audio and coding and Excel and all these different places it can be involved. And of course, self-driving cars, there's all sorts of places where AI can be changing what's possible and changing where people will go to get their problems solved. So a couple of examples. An obvious one would be, if you are a service company and you are helping other businesses to create their marketing content. So you are helping them to write blog articles, you're helping them with their SEO, you're helping to create their tweets, and you're helping them with all of this content. And often your customers will provide some direction or some thought leadership, and you're dealing with that. I would be worried right now. I'd be looking at this and going, smart businesses right now are going to be looking at how ChatGPT and other marketing tools can actually do a lot of that for them. And there may be an opportunity. I mean, we're looking at it ourselves and going, we might not need the amount of marketing resource we thought we needed in order to do the quantity of marketing that we were planning to do. And there's certain skills which we might have struggled with around coming up with, endless hooks and great bodies and so on, which suddenly that blocker, that lack of skill, that reason to look externally is disappearing. So if you have that kind of service company where there's this clear alignment between what you do and what people are now starting to use these AI tools for, then I would be worried by that.
Yeah.
As a second example that I'll throw in, and one that I think sometimes shocks people, one of the biggest companies out there right now is at a serious risk, and that's Google. So Google has, for the last 20, 25 years, been the way that you access the internet. It is the starting point. It's like, you've got a question, where do you go? You go on Google. Maybe you now talk to Alexa, whatever, and it goes off and uses a search engine in the background. But Google is the hub. It's where you start. It's how you answer your question, your questions, how you do your research, and so on. And suddenly, there is another tool out there in ChatGPT which can solve a lot of those problems for you, and often does it quicker and more to kind of a more satisfactory outcome. And people are just starting to get to grips with it. But the kind of research where you're thinking, okay, what are the top 10 ways that I could be redesigning my kitchen? What are the ways I could things that I should be thinking about when I'm doing a onboarding process? Or, I mean, my wife's using it for literally checking up on medical conditions and so on. And her experience, because I'm going to go in, really, you want to go on ChatGPT for that? Because at least if you go on Google, then you see where it's coming from and whether or not to trust it. But the experience is that when you go on Google, you have to go to one site and then another site and then another site, and you're still not sure whether to trust them. ChatGPT gives you one answer, and sure, if the answer isn't perfect, you'll go and sense check it. But it was actually, a quicker outcome to her immediate need to get an answer on a specific area. She's done the same for looking for restaurants. Another area where I would say, surely you're going to look on Google. You want the reviews. And yet she's doing her research for a company meetup in Barcelona using ChatGPT as the first way of doing it. And there's going to be loads of different places where it will start to replace some of the ways that we've used search engines in the past. So Google, this business that seemed to be, just to dominate, to not have a competitor in that market space, they've got a true monopoly. They are at risk. They get a lot of their business through that search engine, through the paid ads there. It's going to hurt. So knowing that, it's got the service companies down the bottom, we've got Google at the top. And I mentioned earlier, you got the self-driving cars and other places. This can apply to all sorts of businesses. So so many ways where your product could become less valuable because of what's happening in the marketplace.
Yeah, and I think it's really interesting, because I think you take something like self-driving cars, and that feels like an area of AI that's been on the cards for a while. It's sort of like, oh well, we've been talking forever about self-driving cars, and yet it's just around the corner, and then it's not. And Tesla obviously moved it a huge amount further forward than it had previously been. And yet we're still not there with fully automated self-driving cars and so on. And I think a few years ago we might be forecasting the end or the risk to taxi firms and all these sorts of things as being like, well, actually this is going to fundamentally change what you're doing, and yet that's not materialized yet. I think one of the things that we're seeing in the area of something like content and producing of text is how much faster that is happening in some areas. But of course, it will take time for the whole market to adjust, right? I was talking to one of our customers who's essentially a sort of marketing agency, and one of the things they do is produce content. And we were talking about how she's doing the research to really understand this area, reading our ebook, attending our webinar, all these such things, absorbing, okay, what does this mean for my business? How do I deliver to my customers with higher value using AI rather than AI disrupting what I do? And I think that the challenge is that it won't happen immediately. It's not like all of her customers across all of the industries will suddenly wake up to AI and immediately know how to use it to achieve the things that she does. Derek the painter, who just gives her manage my Instagram account and doesn't really want to touch it after that, is probably not thinking, actually, could AI be doing this better? However, some of her customers are, and she's so far, I think, lost one or two who have utilized AI platforms to do some of the things that she was doing for them and that her team were doing for them on Instagram. And I think the risk is pulling a Blockbuster or a Woolworths or one of the laggards, where you initially look at this threat and kind of dismiss it and assume that, oh well, yeah, sure, like some people will do it that way, but that won't be the norm. And I think the problem and the temptation is, initially you're right. This is written about brilliantly by the late Clayton M. Christensen in Innovator's Dilemma and Innovator Solution, where he basically talks about when you've got a new technology, new product, way of doing business or whatever, what happens is initially it disrupts the lower end of the market and the and often cases that the incumbent business looks at and goes, oh well, it's only being used here. So in the areas of marketing, it might be like, oh, well, it's not being used for major campaigns. If I'm one of our customers that we've done a lot of work with is Sony PlayStation. If I'm at the marketing end of that, I might look at it, yeah, but it's not going to do big campaigns with cinema ads and the kind of scale of what we're doing. It's going to be just used by, individual owner-operator businesses. And of course, initially that may be true. But as it continues to improve and as people become more aware and as the process of how you get good results out of the technology and the new approach become clearer, actually those things absolutely can be done in that way. And it kind of moves up the market, with low cost products is another example where if, let's say, someone moved into the market saying, tell you what, I'm going to help you get your book written, published, promoted, up to bestseller, etc., and I'm going to use it using 95% AI and just 5% humans kind of managing it and so on. As a result, rather than it being £30,000 to get your book written, published and promoted, instead it's going to be £1,000 or whatever. Initially, there'll be a load of people in the space saying, oh yeah, but you wouldn't do that for your best-selling authors. Like that's, you wouldn't do that for your J.K. Rowling's and the real celebrity ones, and that's true. But initially, it would start at the bottom of the market, and over time, the approach would improve sufficiently so that becomes the case. And so, I think the way around this is to focus on value and the result for the customer, right? It's about, yes, looking at, exactly as you say, Paddy, looking at what can AI do and therefore what risk does it pose, but actually looking at what's the fundamental outcome that your customer wants and needs, and what's the most efficient, cost-effective way in which I can achieve that. Because if you're not looking at that, the risk is that you're focusing on your own model and protecting yourself, which ultimately in the short term might be possible, but long term it'll always get disrupted. Which brings us neatly onto the second major risk that we talked about, which is what could your competitors be doing? Because of course there's one aspect which is that a service or a product that you provide can be done quicker, cheaper, better, whatever, by utilizing some form of AI. And often we talk about text because it's easy to understand versus, say, the complexities of image analysis, but it's all different areas. So, but that's just looking internally. What could competitors be doing utilizing AI, particularly for versus a business that perhaps doesn't make full use of it?
Yeah, so I think the question that you should be asking yourself is, in your worst nightmare, if your competitors went full in on using AI, what could they do with it? And really explore that and be aware that some of these people might be your competitors today, the ones that you know about, and some of these competitors will be new businesses that take on this opportunity and find new tools, new services that they create, and then they become your competitors in the coming years. So the thing to open up and just to start exploring that, because as you say, what's not going to happen for most businesses, some businesses, literally a tool like ChatGPT comes along and they're like, oh no, that's literally overnight going to take. You talked about someone who lost a couple of customers. There will be some businesses that will lose a lot more from that because they are doing something which is very, very close to what ChatGPT offers. The chances are that's not the case for your business. Most businesses don't have that direct correlation with what it does. But at some point, there will be, for many, many businesses, something which is a lot closer and delivers a lot more value and makes that leap. And it may be something which comes gradually and that you have visibility of and can see the marketplace moving, or it may be something which is kind of under wraps until you have this kind of release, and then you suddenly discover, oh no, it's happened, and suddenly I'm losing a lot of my business very quickly with something which would take me months or years to try to catch up with. So it's hard to say what the risk is without thinking about your own individual businesses. If I was to take that and apply it to AirManual, well, what are the kind of things that we're doing? We're helping businesses, and suddenly it's off the top of my head. So we're helping businesses to set up essentially the manual, the playbook for how their company works, for how teams work, and so on. What can AI do as of this moment? Well, it can help you to brainstorm those documents, those SOPs, those manuals. One of the things that we do as a real value add is providing templates. And right now, I'd say that our templates are probably better than what you're going to get from using ChatGPT. But already the scope of what ChatGPT can offer is going to be larger. So where we've got a certain number, suddenly you've got a tool which can add to it. And I'd say at the moment the two can complement each other really well, because ChatGPT isn't trying to be a manual. There's 100 features that we've got which would make it a really bad choice for your company manual. It wouldn't work. But if you were to play it forward and go, what about our competitors? If they were starting to embed this and also using AI to help manage and to schedule and notify and put lots of different automations in place, how would that play out? How could that tool look in a year, 2 years, 3 years from now when the competitors had a chance to really run at this? And that's a risk, because someone could be doing that in your industry. And if you are not thinking of it, if you do not have your eyes open to it and how you respond, and it doesn't mean that you necessarily need your own AI tool, but you need to be aware of where it could be going and how you would position yourself if that came about. Then you're putting yourself at a lot of risk. It's the same as the original risk. If you are ignoring it, if you are not educating yourself, if you're not thinking about it, then it won't happen today or tomorrow, but at some point in the next 5 years, your business could go out of business. It could really be annihilated.
Yeah, I think it's a really useful lens, particularly to apply that in your worst nightmare. What would your competitors do with this, and not just existing competitors, as you say, like new competitors. Applying that lens of, if I were going into this industry afresh and I had a load of funding and time behind me, what could I do to do this more efficiently? And I think a lot of the examples that we use just there are talking often about fundamentally changing the way in which your product or service operates. But of course, it's not just there, right? It's every process in your business. Whether it's, for example, improving how efficiently you're able to do your marketing or your customer support, or sales, or whatever it is. I think the opportunity for competitors is that they will say, well, yeah, actually, we can do what they do except half the price, because we've managed to completely automate all of our customer support and X, Y, and are doing 3 times the marketing because we're utilizing AI and we're doing all these things. And I think suddenly you've then got a real risk, because even though their product or service might not have changed, everything about their operation and the cost of serving their customers has reduced, which means that they can reduce prices and be more competitive, or just outmarket you, or whatever, or even just invest more in marketing, right? They don't even need to reduce their prices. If they can increase their profit margin, they can afford to pay more than you can to market their services, and as a result, take market share that way. And so I think Yeah, there is significant value in taking that time to go through that mental exercise to identify those things. And in fact, we'll be doing that as part of the webinar. I'll be facilitating a session to do exactly that as part of the workshop. So, I mean, we talked there about, and in fact, I touched on the fact that there are opportunities for competitors to be doing sales and marketing differently, and as a result, presenting a risk to other businesses in that way. You also talked earlier about the risk that certain channels like Google could be disrupted, which would make a big change. How else could sales and marketing channels be affected for businesses currently?
Yeah, so this is a big one, and if you're a fairly young business, it's something you might not have experienced, but for the businesses that have been around for 10, 15, 20 years and that have been using particularly online advertising, where you've got the advertising, the marketing channels that are reliant on the big tech, the Facebooks, the Google, and other ways of getting out there, SEO and so on. The things that we've experienced is, I think we've got a Google slap or
Facebook slap or whatever. It's
Facebook slap or whatever, where you've got a marketing channel where you know that you put X effort or X money into Google every week, every month, and you expect to get a certain number of leads because the adverts work, because they get to the right level, and essentially your business can grow and scale and flourish with this. And then overnight, Google or Facebook or one of the other platforms changes the way that they allow you to promote, or the way that they rank your content, or something else like this. And you go from getting 500 visitors a day to getting 10, from getting hundreds of £1,000s of business to getting barely enough to survive. It can literally be an overnight change. And of course, this will affect the businesses out there who are most heavily reliant on a single channel the most. And unfortunately, that, of course, means a lot of small businesses who have, starting to grow. You've worked out one channel which is working for you. We know that we need to remove that risk, and we need to try and get different channels so that this thing doesn't completely screw you. But even if you've got 3 channels, if one of them stops working overnight, that's probably going to be enough that you're going to have to start, losing team members and other stuff to reduce your costs. It could be a huge, huge impact. So this is something which isn't just going forward. It's not a new risk that your marketing channels can fall over, particularly when we're doing online marketing. But there are some very kind of clear risks in the way that AI could be disrupting this. And one of them is essentially the way I've alluded to earlier, which is people will go onto Google less, because when you can use ChatGPT to do your research into medical issues, restaurants, but business problems that you have previously been going on to Google for, you won't see the ads that were on Google. So if your business is advertising for things that people are searching for on Google, and they stop searching for it as much on Google and get it through ChatGPT, then those ads are not going to bring you in as much business. The same is going to be true for your SEO content. You could have invested a huge amount in creating hundreds and thousands of articles, which are bringing you in a huge amount of organic traffic at the moment, and it feels like a really robust thing. Brilliant. I'm not reliant on paid ads. But if people stop going onto search engines and ending up on websites like yours, then they're not going to see it. They're not going to be experiencing the content as content that you've created with your brand and your logo in the corner and a nice little call to action on the side. They'll get the answer directly from a bot with no indication of where it came from and no way of thanking you or paying you paying you in kind for the value that you've given them. And again, I'd say this isn't the kind of thing which is going to necessarily change overnight, but I think ChatGPT, it went from 0 to 1 million users quicker than any tool ever before it, and it's still skyrocketing, and it is really changing behaviors for the people that have discovered it. At the moment, I could not tell you. It may be a tenth of the impact, which I'm imagining. It may be 100 times bigger. It's really difficult to guess and to see where behavior is going to go, but there's clearly a risk, and you need to be able to think about that impact. Alongside that, it's not just Google. You got to think that AI has the power to disrupt other platforms in the same way. So your Facebooks, your LinkedIn's, your everything else. If AI can provide you a better service than what you currently go on Facebook or LinkedIn for, which is generally kind of entertainment and connections, if different tools come in which actually disrupt in the same way that ChatGPT could be disrupting Google, then these platforms in the same way could be put at risk. It hasn't happened today, but literally we're only a few months into this the point where AI has become kind of business ready. So it's what could happen over the next 3, 5, 10 years. And do you as a business have a heavy reliance on any of these channels? Then you're going to be needing to take a look at these risks.
Yeah, and I think as you say, there's the present risk to those channels, which is or something that feels quite present, which is disrupting things like Google for where do people go to get information, get their answers, and so on. I think, particularly as you say, as you roll it forward, other channels feel at risk, and I don't fully have a sense for what happens, how it plays out, and as a result, what you can do in areas like TikTok and Instagram and channels that we would perhaps regard as higher engagement, higher complexity, and so on. Like, I think most of us are now comfortable that ChatGPT could churn out social media posts based on existing content or ideas that you feed it, and in general we'd recommend that way round rather than, hey, give me some ideas and now turn those into content and so on. Like, you want there needs to be some creativity injected, but that feels like that could get churned out into blogs, into LinkedIn posts, into tweets and so on pretty easily. There are tools for images that mean that Instagram, Facebook, etc., where it's a bit more image friendly, creating images to accompany those posts is now easier and quicker than ever before, and things are improving on being able to do that. Of course, on platforms like TikTok and all the ones that I've mentioned before also support video, but video, and particularly short video, is an area that's grown significantly, particularly in the last few years. And of course, AI already, but as it develops, this is going to become better and more available, could do things like take long form video content and turn it into all the short form that then gets posted on these channels, which at the moment takes a lot of effort. You might pay other companies to do it, all these sorts of things, which means that there's not a huge amount of content creators in those spaces versus the number of audience members, because of the effort required to create a good, engaging video that, changes the visual quickly and annotates it and puts your messaging and so on. And yet those things could be increasingly done by AI, even to the point that if it can create images and it can create text and scripts, then there's no reason that the AI couldn't then create the video. Because essentially video is just a combination of take the text, turn that into an AI voiceover, already exists, take images, series of images, one after another, creates movement, which creates the video, which means that we may not be that far away from, in some cases, videos being able to created by AI to do these things. And what I haven't resolved yet is whether, does this mean that as an audience, we end up switching off more from those platforms because there's just more content? Or does it go the other way, which is that because the content is designed to be engaging and more personalized and can be even more segmented to your specific needs and valuable, that actually it means that becomes an even more valuable source of information and tips and whatever it is.
I don't know if it necessarily matters, but either way, what you're expressing is there's a change in how that platform is working. Potentially, it's diluting any effort you're making as a business personally. Could it quickly be diluted? Classic examples before, like if you were one of the first people on to the app store on iPhone, or one of the first people to create podcasts, then there was at some point so much more demand than actual quality content that it would have been relatively easy to make that a huge part of your business. Whereas now, if you go into either of these platforms, even if you go incredibly niche, there's a huge number of quality businesses out there creating quality content, and it's really difficult to make it work, to build your audience. And so it just takes little changes to the dynamics to change something that might be working for you today. So you might be ahead of the game. You might be using TikTok and getting a lot of audience that way, and it's gonna change. It's gonna, as you say, there's gonna be more content. It may make the experience better or worse for the end user, but it will change the dynamic. And if you are reliant on that or any of these other areas, then again, you need to understand that there is a risk and look at how to take mitigating actions if it's a big enough one.
Which brings us neatly onto, so how do we approach these sorts of risks? What's the given there's a number of different areas in which there can be risk for a existing business, and in some cases, like the one we just talked about, you do get to a point where it's impossible to know exactly how it's going to play out. So how can a business leader approach this?
Cool. Great question. And this is a key to de-stressing your business more generally. It's to approach all business risks as something that you shouldn't be hiding from, you shouldn't be ignoring. And I think there's a lot of books and leaders out there that recommend that this is something that leadership does as part of their quarterly review. So when you're reviewing what's happened, have you hit your goals for the last quarter, have you done what you said you would, and you're looking forward and making your plans, as part of that, you also look at the biggest risks that could be affecting your business, and you are quickly assessing them. You don't want it to be in a separate exercise, meetings and hours and hours and hours, putting your head down. It will get deprioritized. But a quick kind of top of the head going, what's the potential impact out of 5? How could it be affecting my business? Could it go from a 1 of not really doing much to a 5? It would actually destroy the business. Likelihood, is it a 1? Almost certainly not going to happen, to a 5, extremely likely. Rank those risks, because like everything else, you want to be prioritizing, you want to be focusing your effort where it's needed the most, and then decide whether or not you need to take mitigating action. So if you look at this and go, you know what, it's not the highest likelihood, but the impact, if we were to have this one marketing channel screwed, and that might be screwed by AI or different other things that could happen, then that would put us out of business. Then you would decide, okay, we need to take action. We might need to diversify. We might need to take other ways of making sure that doesn't put the entire business and your employees and everything else at jeopardy if it occurs. And so out the back of it, you can come up with a plan of, okay, these are the things, we now understand what the biggest risks are. This is the things that we think we should do. And we're now making our plan for the next 3 months. Where do these things sit against the other things that we could be doing, including building on other opportunities and growth? And you may go and go, okay, I understand the risk and I can see the impact and I know I need to do something about it. But right now, for my business, it's more important that we take on another opportunity or whatever. That's okay. The important thing is to do it with your eyes open, having reviewed the risks. And if there's a risk like this one where you look at it and just go, I don't know. I don't feel I have enough understanding in order to make a judgment out of 5 about it. I don't know what AI tools are out there. I've heard ChatGPT, but I really haven't a clue what other tools make possible yet. I can't really answer the questions that have been put on this show about what could my competitors be doing with it? How could it affect my marketing channels? Then you need to educate yourself, and that does need to be a priority. You need to kind of treat that as something that needs to be done almost ASAP. It doesn't need to take months. It won't derail your other priorities. And as we're about to share, we have an ebook and a webinar, both of which will give you enough to be able to start assessing this risk in less than an hour of your time.
Yeah, agreed. And I think education of around how you can use AI and those various tools, I think is absolutely the answer in terms of how you then not only utilize it, but actually understand where it doesn't present a risk, or where you can ignore it, but you can't make that assessment until you have that understanding, which, as you say, we've got some resources to speed up that process and make and avoid that derailing. But I think also, for you as a business leader, you need to, one needs to develop your understanding, but also wherever possible, you want to share that understanding and that opportunity to learn with the rest of the team, because there's only so much that as the business leader that you have visibility of or time to consider and so on. And whereas it's your team that are working at the coalface, whether it's they're developing the marketing copy, writing the social media posts, responding to existing customers, coming up with descriptions of a feature that they're going to develop in your new product or whatever it is, they're the ones that, if they have an understanding, they may be able to already start to utilize some of the tools or come up with ways in which they might in future. And I think by creating dialogue around that within the organization, around some of that education, that's really helpful. Brilliant, Paddy. I think we've talked a lot about risks. In the subsequent episode, we'll go more into the opportunities and the positive, exciting side of it. But I think this is a really important place to start. We've talked about educating people on on how they can do this. You mentioned the ebook, which we've had a lot of amazing feedback on, which people can find at airmanual.link/AI/ebook, which essentially provides a guide for business leaders on how to use AI at GPT, and goes into quite a bit of detail and gives you some real examples. It essentially gives you everything you need to know, including both the risks and opportunities. But one of the things I really love about that ebook is that it includes a checklist that you can share with your team to train them up. Essentially self-driven e-learning for free that they can go through the checklist and get up to speed. I think we worked out it's 90 minutes total for a team member to be able to not only learn what they need to know, but also reflect on it and identify where your business could be making use of AI or what the opportunities are and so on. So there's a great opportunity to utilize the hive mind of people in your organization to do that. And note that whether they're employees or not. It might be that you've got service providers, marketing people, virtual assistants that you think, this feels like it should change this, rather than put it on you to go and work out what you should be using instead of those people. Why not give them the education and with an expectation that they will then work out how they can provide you the same or better services for the same or less cost. So do check that out. I'd also recommend joining our webinar, which is at airmanual.link/AI/webinar. On that, we're going to cover we're going to cover some of the concepts in a lot of detail, but particularly it's going to be interactive and it's going to give you an opportunity to really think about how this applies to your business and how you would get it used, because that's one of the biggest challenges with this. The next webinar that we've got on AI and ChatGPT and the things you need to know is going to be on February the 7th at 1 p.m. UK time. We'll be covering how artificial intelligence can become your new best junior employee. We'll cover the big risks to your business and dive deep in that with an interactive session, and also show you how to focus on your biggest problems and use AI to obliterate them. So please do join that webinar and do go get your hands on that ebook. Anything else to cover, Paddy, before we close off?
I think we're good.
Fantastic. Well, in which case, for those that have been tuning in regularly, our weekly webinar series is not one to miss. We dive into the topic of freeing up 15 hours per week whilst also reducing the stress of running a business, all without hindering growth. Join us live in that session to get valuable insights and strategies. You can access that at airmanual.co/webinar for more information how to register for that webinar. So for clarity, we've got a webinar on AI and using ChatGPT and all those sorts of things, and a separate one on how to free up 15 hours a week and remove the constant stress from running the business. So do check out those, register for one or both. Ultimately, the growth of your business won't exceed your own personal growth. So do make sure you're educating yourself on that. Otherwise, a final note for our podcast listeners: as a new podcast we need your help. If you found the content today valuable, please just take 1 minute to leave an honest review. This will help the podcast get more visibility and ultimately allow us to help more people, which is what we're all about. Otherwise, until next time, have fun.